Power has a price. Everyone knows that. But what if the price isn't paid in money, or time, or sacrifice? What if it's paid in humanity itself? A former bodyguard for Andrew Tate discovered the truth behind the infamous influencer's meteoric rise to power. Every morning at exactly 4:44 a.m., Tate enters a locked room. Every morning, he emerges different, more confident, more charismatic, more inhuman. Because Andrew Tate made a deal. And with every passing day, less of the original man remains. Only 30% is still human. The rest belongs to something else. The bodyguard's name was Marcus Chen, 34 years old, former military, 6 years of private security experience. He'd worked for tech CEOs, Hollywood actors, Middle Eastern royalty. He thought he'd seen everything the world of wealth and power had to offer. Then he got the call to work for Andrew Tate. The pay was exceptional, triple his usual rate. The job seemed straightforward: close protection for a controversial internet personality living in Romania. 12-hour shifts, rotating schedule, standard security protocols. Marcus had done this 100 times before. He started in January 2023, just as Tate was being released from house arrest. The compound in Bucharest was massive, a fortress of concrete and steel, cameras everywhere, security tighter than most government facilities Marcus had worked at. Tate was exactly what Marcus expected from the videos: loud, confident, constantly performing. He treated the security team with respect but distance, like they were props in the elaborate production of his life. Always filming, always creating content, always projecting an image of absolute dominance, but there were rules. Strange rules that Marcus noticed immediately. Rule 1. No one enters the east wing of the compound between 4:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. Ever. No exceptions. Rule 2. If you hear chanting or voices coming from the east wing during those hours, you heard nothing. You report nothing. Rule 3. Tate's personal schedule is managed by him alone. No assistant, no manager enters certain appointments into any shared calendar. Marcus had worked for paranoid clients before. Privacy was expected at this level of wealth. But these rules felt different, more ritualistic than practical. The first incident happened during Marcus's second week. He was on night shift, doing a perimeter check at 4:30 a.m. The compound was silent except for the hum of generators and the occasional bark from the guard dogs. Then he heard it. A voice from the east wing. Deep, resonant, speaking in a language Marcus didn't recognize. Not Romanian, not English, not Arabic. Something older, harsher, with consonants that shouldn't fit in a human throat. Marcus moved toward the sound instinctively, hand on his weapon. Then he remembered. Rule 2. You heard nothing, but he had heard something. And his training wouldn't let him ignore a potential security threat. He approached the east wing carefully. The voice was coming from behind a heavy wooden door, the only door in the entire compound that wasn't steel and bulletproof glass. It was carved with symbols Marcus had never seen before, intricate patterns that seemed to shift in his peripheral vision. Through a crack in the door, Marcus could see flickering light. Candlelight, not electric. And shadows moving in ways that didn't match the light source. The voice continued, alternating between that unknown language and English. And then Marcus heard Tate's voice, responding. I've held up my end. Every day. Every single day for 3 years. The other voice responded, and it sounded like laughter filtered through gravel. And you've reaped the rewards, haven't you? Millions of followers. Influence beyond measure. Power that makes weak men tremble. The cost is too high. I'm losing myself. You're becoming something greater. The weak Andrew who doubted himself, who feared failure, that pathetic creature needed to die. We are simply accelerating the process. How much longer? Until there's nothing left of the old you. Until you're a perfect vessel. 30% human remains. We'll take the rest soon enough. Marcus stepped back from the door, his heart pounding. This was insane. He'd misheard, misunderstood. Tate was probably on a phone call or recording content for his followers. The demon voice was probably a voice modulator, some kind of character he played for his audience. But then the door opened. Tate stood in the doorway, but he looked wrong. His eyes were completely black, no whites, no iris, just solid darkness that seemed to absorb light. His skin had a grayish pallor, and the air around him shimmered with heat despite the cool morning temperature. He looked directly at Marcus and smiled. "You heard." It wasn't a question. Marcus's hand moved to his weapon, but his body wouldn't obey. He was frozen, paralyzed by something he couldn't see or understand. Tate stepped closer. With each step, his appearance slowly returned to normal. The black eyes faded back to brown. The gray skin regained its color. The heat shimmer dissipated. By the time he was standing in front of Marcus, he looked completely human again. "We have a problem," Tate said, his voice casual but with an undercurrent of something dangerous. "You weren't supposed to see that." Marcus tried to speak but couldn't. His throat was locked, his jaw clenched shut by invisible pressure. "I could have him erase your memory," Tate continued, gesturing back toward the room. "Simple enough. You'd wake up tomorrow with a gap in your recollection, maybe a headache, no big deal. But memory erasure is imperfect. Leaves traces. Makes people ask questions." The pressure on Marcus's throat eased slightly. What are you?" "I'm Andrew Tate. Or rather, I'm what's left of him. 30% original recipe, 70% something else. The percentage shifts daily. Soon it'll be 29, then 28, until eventually." He shrugged. "Well, until there's nothing left but the entity." "What entity?" Tate smiled, and for just a moment, Marcus saw something behind his eyes. Something vast and ancient and utterly inhuman, looking out through a human face like a shark circling beneath murky water. "The one I made a deal with 3 years ago, when I was broke, desperate, cancelled by every platform, watching my influence crumble. I was nothing, and I couldn't accept being nothing." He started walking back toward the main house, gesturing for Marcus to follow. The paralysis released, and Marcus's body obeyed despite his mind screaming at him to run. "So I did what desperate men have done for thousands of years," Tate continued. "I sought power from sources most people pretend don't exist. And I found one. A demon, an entity, a force. The name doesn't matter. What matters is that it offered me a deal." They entered Tate's private office, a room Marcus had never been allowed into before. The walls were covered in certificates, awards, photos with celebrities and politicians. Evidence of success. But in the corner, partially hidden by a curtain, Marcus could see something else: a shrine. Candles, symbols, and a statue of something that looked vaguely humanoid but fundamentally wrong. "The deal was simple," Tate said, pouring himself a drink. "It would give me charisma beyond measure. The ability to influence millions. Rhetorical skills that could convince people of anything. Business acumen that turned everything I touched into gold. In exchange, it gets to live through me, to experience the physical world through my body. And day by day, it takes more control." "Why would you agree to that?" "Because being nobody terrified me more than losing my soul. At least this way, I matter. I have power. I'm remembered." He took a sip of his drink. Besides, the old Andrew Tate was weak, insecure, desperate for validation. The entity is strong. It knows exactly what it wants and how to get it. In many ways, I'm better now than I ever was. Marcus felt sick. You're letting a demon possess you. Possession implies I'm resisting. I'm not. This is a partnership. I get what I want: power, influence, legacy. It gets what it wants: a body, experiences, the ability to affect the physical world. Win-win. Until there's nothing left of you. Tate's expression darkened. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe Andrew Tate the human was always meant to be a stepping stone to something greater. An evolutionary process. From flesh to something more. Marcus backed toward the door. I quit. No, you don't. Tate's voice had changed, led now with that deeper resonance Marcus had heard through the door. You can't quit. You know too much. And my partner doesn't like loose ends. The door slammed shut behind Marcus without anyone touching it. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees in an instant, and the shadows in the corners began to move, reaching toward Marcus with appendages that shouldn't exist. You have two choices, Tate said, and now his eyes were black again, his voice fully inhuman. Join us. Become part of the operation, help spread our influence, and receive your own enhancements. Or, the shadows wrapped around Marcus's throat, cold and solid despite being made of nothing but darkness. Or you become a cautionary tale. Your body found in some tragic accident. Suicide, perhaps. So much pressure, the job, the stress. Nobody would question it. Marcus clawed at the shadows, but his hands passed through them even as they choked him. His vision started to go dark. And then, just as he was about to lose consciousness, the pressure released. He collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Tate stood over him, human again, looking down with something like pity. I don't want to kill you, Marcus. You're good at your job. Loyal. Discreet. Those qualities are valuable. So here's a third option. You stay on my security team. You forget what you saw. You never speak of this to anyone. And in exchange, you keep your life, your generous salary, and you get to pretend everything is normal. Marcus coughed, his throat burning. And if I agree, then you survive. You do your job. And you never, ever go near the East Wing during the morning hours again. What choice did he have? Marcus nodded. Good. Tate helped him to his feet. Welcome to the inner circle. Population, very few. Most people can't handle the truth. But you're military trained. You've seen things that don't fit neat categories. You can adapt. Over the following weeks, Marcus tried to do exactly that. He showed up for his shifts, did his job professionally, and pretended that morning in the East Wing had never happened. But he couldn't unsee what he'd seen. Couldn't unhear those voices, and he started noticing things he'd missed before. Tate's behavior was off. Some days he seemed completely normal, arrogant, yes, controversial, certainly, but human. Other days he seemed like something wearing Tate's skin. His movements too fluid, his reactions too calculated, his eyes tracking people with predatory precision that went beyond normal human observation. Marcus noticed that Tate never ate on bad days. Never drank water. Never seemed to blink. Just performed being human without actually being human. He also noticed the pattern of Tate's influence growing. Videos that would normally get him banned somehow stayed up. Algorithms that should have suppressed his content instead promoted it. Interviews with hostile journalists somehow always ended with the interviewer looking foolish and Tate looking wise. It wasn't just charisma. It was something else. Something that bent reality slightly in his favor. One night, Marcus was doing his rounds when he overheard Tate on a video call with someone. He was giving advice to a young man, probably late teens, about building wealth and influence. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes, Tate was saying. Most men are weak. They have lines they won't cross, principles that hold them back. But true power requires sacrifice. You have to be willing to give up everything you were to become everything you're meant to be. The young man on the screen was eating it up, nodding eagerly, and Marcus realized Tate wasn't just spreading his influence. He was recruiting, looking for other desperate, angry young men who might be willing to make their own deals, creating a network of demon-possessed influences. The thought was so horrifying that Marcus almost didn't believe it. But then he remembered Rule 3. Tate's personal schedule is managed by him alone. Marcus hacked Tate's personal calendar. Not difficult when you have physical access to someone's office and know their patterns. What he found confirmed his worst fears: monthly meetings labeled only with initials and locations. Always at night. Always in private spaces. And notations afterward: successful. Declined. Needs more time. Tate was meeting with other influencers, other desperate people seeking power, and he was offering them the same deal he'd taken. Marcus pulled up social media accounts of the people Tate had met with. Some he recognized, other controversial figures, smaller influencers trying to break through, podcasters and alpha male coaches. And many of them showed the same signs: sudden surges in popularity, unnatural charisma, and that same predatory quality in their eyes during certain videos. The infection was spreading. Marcus knew he should go to the authorities. But who would believe him? And even if they did, what could they do? Arrest Tate for making a deal with a demon? That wasn't a crime in any legal system. He considered leaving. Just quitting, taking his savings, disappearing to somewhere far away. But he'd seen what happened to people who tried to leave with knowledge they shouldn't have. 3 former security team members had quit in the past year. 2 died in car accidents within weeks. The 3rd developed sudden, aggressive cancer and was dead in 2 months. So Marcus stayed. And he documented everything. He kept a journal, encrypted and stored in multiple locations. He recorded videos of his observations, uploaded to private servers. He gathered evidence, not knowing what he'd ever do with it, but compelled by some instinct that someone needed to know the truth. 4 months into the job, Marcus witnessed the morning ritual again. This time intentionally. He'd set up a hidden camera near the east wing door, disguised as part of the security system. What the camera captured was beyond anything Marcus had imagined. Tate entered the room at exactly 4:44 a.m., as always. But inside, visible now through the camera's lens, was something that made Marcus's blood run cold. The entity was there. Not just a voice, but a physical presence. It looked vaguely humanoid: 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, but wrong in every detail. Too tall, joints bending in directions they shouldn't, skin that looked like smoke made solid. And its face, if you could call it a face, was Tate's face. An older, more perfect version. Like looking at what Tate might become if all his humanity was stripped away. The ritual was disturbing in its intimacy. Tate knelt before the entity, and it placed its hands on his head. Then, like water being poured from one vessel to another, something flowed from the entity into Tate. His body convulsed, back arching, veins bulging black under his skin, and when he stood up, he was different. Taller, maybe, or perhaps he just carried himself with more presence. His features were sharper, more defined. His eyes held that predatory intelligence that didn't quite seem human. The entity spoke, 27% human remaining. The transformation proceeds ahead of schedule. At this rate, full integration in 18 months. Will I still be me? Tate asked, and for the first time, Marcus heard fear in his voice. Real, human fear. You'll be better than you. You'll be eternal. Perfect. All the weakness burned away, leaving only power. The entity circled him like a shark. Unless you're having second thoughts. No, no second thoughts. I just I wonder sometimes what the old me would think, if he'd recognize what I've become. The old you was a coward, desperate for approval, terrified of irrelevance. This new you, this us, we are magnificent. We are changing the world, shaping minds, building an empire. Don't mourn what you were. Celebrate what you're becoming. Tate nodded, but Marcus saw the doubt in his posture. Some small part of the original Andrew Tate was still in there, still questioning, still afraid, and it was losing. Marcus stopped the recording and sat in the dark security office, trying to process what he'd seen. The entity was real. The possession was real. And Tate was knowingly, willingly letting it happen, but why? What did the entity gain from possessing a controversial internet influencer? The answer came to Marcus in a flash of horrifying clarity: influence over millions. The entity didn't just want one body, it wanted access to millions of minds. Every young man who followed Tate's advice, who internalized his worldview, who modeled themselves after him, they were all being subtly influenced by something demonic, and the network was growing. Every recruiter Tate converted became another vector for the entity's influence. A pyramid scheme of demonic possession. Marcus made a decision. He couldn't stop this alone. But he could expose it. He could get the evidence out, let the world see what Tate really was, and maybe, save some of the young men being recruited into this nightmare. He spent the next 2 weeks preparing, copying files, organizing evidence, setting up dead man switches that would release everything if something happened to him. He contacted journalists, researchers, even occult experts who might believe his story, and then, on a Wednesday morning at 4:44 a.m., he made his mistake. He went to the East Wing door one more time, wanting one final piece of evidence. One clear recording of Tate speaking to the entity. Something undeniable, but when he approached the door, it was already open. And Tate was standing in the doorway, waiting. "I knew you'd come back," Tate said. Behind him, in the darkness of the room, something massive moved. "The entity told me. It can sense intentions, you see. It knew you were planning to expose us." Marcus ran. Pure instinct, pure survival. He made it maybe 20 feet before invisible force grabbed him, lifting him off the ground and slamming him into the wall hard enough to crack the concrete. Tate walked over slowly, almost casually. "I liked you, Marcus. I really did. You're smart, capable, professional. In another timeline, you could have been part of this, could have received your own enhancements. But you chose the wrong side." "There shouldn't be sides," Marcus gasped, blood running from his nose. "You're infecting people, converting them into demons. We are elevating them, giving them power they'd never have on their own. The entity doesn't destroy, it transforms, perfects. The weak become strong. The confused gain clarity. The powerless receive dominion. At the cost of their souls." Tate's expression darkened. Soul is just a word for the collection of fears and limitations that keep people small. We are not taking souls, we are freeing people from them. The entity emerged from the room fully now, and Marcus could see its true size. It had to crouch to fit through the doorway, its form shifting and flowing like smoke, but solid enough to cast a shadow. When it spoke, the walls vibrated. "This one cannot be turned. Too much resistance. Too much attachment to his limited human perspective. Dispose of him." "Wait," Tate said. "Maybe we can still, know." The entity's voice was absolute. He's already prepared his exposé, already contacted journalists. He's a threat that must be eliminated. You know this, Andrew. Don't let sentiment make you weak. Marcus saw conflict flash across Tate's face. Some remaining fragment of humanity wrestling with the demon inside him. And for a moment, just a moment, Marcus thought that fragment might win. Then Tate's expression went cold. "Do it quickly. Make it look like an accident." The entity moved toward Marcus, and the last thing he saw before consciousness faded was Tate turning away, unable to watch, that last shred of humanity rebelling even as it obeyed. Marcus woke up in a hospital 3 days later. He'd been found in his apartment, apparent victim of a carbon monoxide leak. Lucky to be alive, the doctors said. Brain damage was possible, but preliminary scans looked good. All his evidence was gone. The files deleted, the backups corrupted, the dead man's switches disarmed. Even his encrypted journal was wiped clean. The only thing that remained was his memory, and even that felt fuzzy. Like looking at events through frosted glass, the demon had done something to his mind. Not a complete erasure, but enough to make him doubt. To make the memories seem more like dreams than reality, Marcus quit the security job, citing health reasons. Tate sent him a generous severance package and a card that read, "Get well soon. The world needs strong men like you." 6 months later, Marcus watched from his small apartment as Andrew Tate launched his newest venture, a global network of self-improvement centers where young men could learn to unlock their full potential. The centers were opening in 20 countries simultaneously, each one led by influencers who'd recently met with Tate, each one showing those same signs Marcus had learned to recognize, and there was nothing he could do to stop it, because who would believe him? The evidence was gone. His memories were compromised. And Tate's influence was now so vast, so protected, that any accusation would be dismissed as jealousy or conspiracy theory. Marcus watched Tate's latest video, a motivational speech about masculine power and dominance. And for just a moment, when the camera caught Tate at a certain angle, Marcus saw it, his eyes completely black. Just for a fraction of a second. Then human again. 27%. Maybe less now. Soon, there would be nothing left of Andrew Tate at all. Just the entity, wearing his face, spreading its influence to millions of desperate young men across the world, and no one would ever know the difference, because the thing that replaced him was exactly what his followers wanted: powerful, confident, uncompromising, and absolutely certain, perfect, too perfect to be human. Marcus closed his laptop and stared at his own reflection in the darkened screen, and wondered how many other people out there had made similar deals. How many other influencers, celebrities, politicians were slowly being consumed by entities that fed on human desperation and hunger for power. How many of them were already more demon than man, and nobody could tell? The question haunted him, but not as much as the other question. The one he tried not to think about but couldn't escape: what percentage of Andrew Tate was left now? And when it hit zero, what would the entity do next?